Welcome to the Strength Coach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Joe Lego, and here we go. Welcome everyone to the Strength Coach Experience, episode 15. Today I want to welcome Zach Dechant, baseball strength coach at Texas Christian University down there in Fort Worth. I had the pleasure of working with Zach in 2012 as his intern, and definitely great experience down there. And he definitely helped shape, my career and help me with a lot of things in my younger years. Zach, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being on, and I'm really excited to get this going.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's honestly, it's good to connect again. I hadn't seen you and talked to you for a little bit, and so I completely forgot when we were talking before the show started that you were here in 2012. My, how the time goes.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I did yesterday. I was, just thinking back and going over all the stuff we did when I was there, and then the year came up the same thing, and I was like, oh my God, it was 9 years ago. It seems like it was 2 summers ago or whatever.
Yeah, completely. I agree.
But time flies, and that's one of the things, that's why, every day you try to get better and change things because, eventually it goes away. And then, I don't know how I became 32 either. I was 21 like a half hour ago.
Yeah. Trust me, it only gets worse.
Well, looking forward to getting up there and more experience.
Yeah, well, it'll come and go quickly, Joe.
Yep, exactly. So why don't we get into things real? Zach, why don't we just go over, growing up and, going through high school and how you kind of started on the journey to strength and conditioning?
Sure. So I went to a super small high school. My hometown in Kansas had less than 300 people. High school had 71 total kids in the entire high school, 9 through 12, right? I played eight-man football. And so I wanted to be a college athlete. My dad kind of actually started me on the path when I was 8th, 9th grade. He said, if you're going to play sports in college, you're going to have to start developing. And he bought me my first weight set and kind of started that passion, I guess. And I worked on the farm in the summers, would get money from harvest and whatnot. And so I started buying my own equipment when I was 15 years old. Bought a power rack, started accumulating weights. I even used to take tractor weights off of the front end of a tractor, right? They usually weigh about 100, 110 pounds. And you stack them on the front of a tractor for counterbalance when you're actually working in the field and whatnot. And so we'd have extra weights laying around wherever on the farm. And I would take those weights and I would actually use tractor weights. I'd dangle them from my waist to squat, to do calf raises, to do all kinds of stupid stuff, I'm sure. But back then it was Muscle magazines, it was Flex, it was Muscle Media, and that's how I started learning. But I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. And one day my dad said to me, this was during my time at JUCO, I played football in junior college, and he said, why don't you be a strength coach, train athletes? He's like, you've studied this stuff forever, you love doing it, why don't you train people? And I was like, I didn't even think about that as an option. And that's what started the path for me. I went to Missouri State to continue on with football there. I actually chose Missouri State because of the strength program. The strength coach had a great reputation, awesome guy, and I knew he could help me in my career. So that's really the prime reason why I chose Missouri State as a football school for me. It was for my career in strength and conditioning. So that's really how the path got started.
That's an awesome story. Like I said, the innovation, started early. That's great with the tractor weights there. Even though you really know what you're doing, you made with what you had, and you knew that you had to do something, and you knew you had to kind of get bigger and start working on those things. And I think it's great also that you were able to kind of figure out what you wanted to do based on just experiences and things that you like to do kind of at an early age, and then you're able to, kind of use football, if you will, to pursue your strength and conditioning path. So I think that's a thing that kind of underlines a lot of people in the field is, you do things like that at an early age. You create with weights, or you do different things. You're always kind of interested to see how you can push yourself, even if it may not be correct or exactly, the right way, but there's always that creative mindset, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And my high school was so small, we didn't have a weight room. So I had to, that's why I really ended up building my own weight room at a young age, is because it was my only option if I wanted to train. So,
Yeah, and exactly, it paid off. So why don't we go through the strength and conditioning stuff at Missouri State? You know, kind of how you got involved in there and how the experience was. You know, being involved in strength conditioning and football at that level.
yeah, so I knew I wanted to be a strength coach. Coach Rick Perry was my mentor, and I honestly owe everything to him. He's at Northwestern now as an assistant. But I, I still studied everything I could while I was coming up as an athlete. When my time as an athlete finished, I knew the process was going to be an internship, a GA position. Coach Perry actually helped me out with an internship position at the University of Washington. So I went out there, learned from great strength coaches out there, met another one of my mentors, Bill Gillespie, with the Seattle Seahawks at the time. I trained with
Yep.
Bill and Joel Jamieson. Joel was an intern before me.
Wow, really?
The semester before, Joel Jamieson was an intern with me at UW. I'm sorry, before me. And then our paths crossed through Bill, and I actually helped Joel kind of build that facility he has now, which is called End Zone Athletics. But so Joel, Bill, and I would actually train together back in the back in 2000 and 2003. Did my internship there anyway. Came back to Missouri State as a GA, and then headed off to spent 2 years there at Missouri State, and headed off to the Anaheim Angels for a 2 year stint with them in professional baseball.
Wow, what an amazing story. Bill, yep, I did meet him. I sat next to him on a plane. I'll never forget. One of the biggest people I've ever seen. He ate 2 Chipotle burritos before we took off, and we just kind of got into it on the way to a conference. And he told me all these amazing things. And you know, I learned so much from him. You know, and I was only with him for 3 days. You know, we sat together on the plane. You know, we spoke a little bit there, and then you know, when we got to it was the CSCCA conference in Missouri, probably back in 2013. And, you know, he introduced me to his staff, and just a great guy overall, you know, and just the way he went about things. And, you know, it's awesome that you and Joel Jamieson were able to work underneath him and learn so much. But yeah, amazing guy.
Yeah, Bill is one of the most special human beings you could ever meet. He made a huge impact on me, and he's had a huge impact on his athletes' lives everywhere. He's a very special person, and I can't thank him enough for taking me under his wing, to be honest, and showing me the stuff that he did. It was it was an amazing world because Joel and I got to train with him. We were basically his training partners, and at the time, he was breaking world records in the masters division for drug-free masters. I think bench press. He didn't squat, didn't deadlift anymore. So just the knowledge, honestly, it was like osmosis. Just being around him
Mhm.
and and getting to work around him, you just absorbed his knowledge. So it was a terrific experience.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, like I said, I was only with him for a few days, but he's got that infectious personality. You know, he didn't know me at all, and he just kind of identified that I was going to the same conference, and he literally, you know, introduced me to his group, kind of brought me in, and I was almost one of his interns, you know, for the
Yeah,
2 3 days I was there. So, like I said, I completely agree that that infectious personality. I think that's a big thing in our field, especially guys that you know you learn from. It's not even about them sitting and teaching you. You know, it's more you're just around them and everything that they do, their movements and the way that they go about coaching. I think that that rubs off you. It also draws you to them. You know,
yeah,
for me, just as like that, Mike Borowis is like that for me. You know, when I worked with him, you know, just watching him train, you know, I always wanted to be around him. You know, even when the sessions got over, I wanted to go talk to him and ask him questions and, you know, just learn as much as I could, you know, from him. And even if I didn't get to ask questions, I just wanted to be around him while he coached because he had that same kind of infectious knowledge and that way of teaching people.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I bet your flight was the most uncomfortable flight ever if you sit next to Bill, because the man's shoulders are barely small enough to fit through most doorways.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was kind of pressed up against the window a little bit, but you know, awesome experience. So why don't we go into you know, going into TCU and how everything started there?
Yeah, so I was fortunate here at TCU. TCU had a football and baseball job kind of combined, in that we're actually still the only Power Five school that doesn't have a separate department of football and Olympic sports.
Mhm.
And so it was a perfect fit because I had played college football. I'd worked with football essentially everywhere. I'd also spent 2 years in professional baseball, so I knew the ins and outs of baseball very well. The baseball staff wanted somebody that knew baseball. The football staff wanted somebody that knew football. So I was really very fortunate in the fact that I was the perfect fit for that job. Um, been here 13 years now, and really it's more baseball than it is football at this time. So it's kind of transitioned into that. It's baseball's become the main sport for me.
Yeah, no, I remember that when I was there, you said 13 years, but 9 years ago when I was there, yeah, we were doing both and learning. But when I was there, like I said, I always knew that baseball was your thing, and I always, thank you for everything you taught me when I was there for those months. Like I said, it truly did shape how I went about my GA and through my career, moving forward. So why don't we go through? I just want to. So let's go. I want to go through some of the changes that you've seen, in your career. From playing football in college, going to Missouri State, and then through the 13 years at TCU. Just what are some of the things that you've seen that are the biggest changes and pretty much the biggest impacts in the S&C field over the last almost 13 years, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of speak specifically to myself, things that I've changed. Um, excuse me. You can tell, or when I was younger, I was very much into maximal strength, right? And I think that's kind of the route that everybody goes,
Hmm.
is thinking that maximal strength is the end all be all, right? And that's something I've really changed my tune on here in the last couple of years, maybe even 4, 5, 6 years, in the fact that it's not all about maximal strength, right? We know that maximal strength is very powerful for the novice athlete, and that it blends over into all other motor abilities, speed, power. It's the foundation for all of those in a novice athlete. But eventually, maximal strength it's full of diminishing returns, right? We
Hmm.
spend way too much time and energy focused on that versus trying to get our kids to move faster, move better a lot of times, and move more powerfully, right? Because how much strength, how much force you can actually apply is completely limited in sport by the time of application. So that's one of the big things that I think I've changed, and I've seen change a lot over the last 5 to 10 years. Is that we now realize that maximal strength may not be as important to continue training once an athlete has kind of a foundation, a base level of strength. So that would be a big one. As we continue talking, I'll probably think of a few more. Um, that really blends over into movement,
Hmm.
um, and that's a huge problem that I've seen, and that's why I wrote the book Movement Over Maxes, which I'm sure we'll touch on in just a little bit. But that's why is that we've got to teach our athletes how to move correctly, right? The best
Hmm.
athletes, fast, powerful, explosive, and they control and move their bodies well, right? In space. It's not about how much weight is on a squat necessarily. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I always use the example with my athletes. It's almost like if you have a Ferrari engine in a beat up old Honda Civic, it doesn't matter how much power that you possess if you can't control it, if you can't move properly, you're going to hurt yourself. It's almost inevitable that you're going to hurt yourself. And all the athletes you've seen and I've been around, you see so many kids, especially at those higher levels, those kids that are so strong, right? They can hit a ball 700 yards, but they can't they get hurt all the time because they don't move right, right? Or they have these discrepancies. So I think that is a big thing, and that is something to change because a lot of, back in the day, it was all the maxes, weight, and now we're moving towards movement, but I think it's still, has to carry over a little bit. But I completely agree. You can't have a V8 engine in a bicycle,
yeah. So and I didn't mean to interrupt you there
Oh,
by
no, you're okay.
um, what we have to really ask ourselves too is the central nervous system is so powerful. A lot of times, the reason that the kids that are fast are strong is because they have a great efficient central nervous system, right? And so we always want to tie that back in to say, well, how do you get faster? You get stronger, or speed is this kid's really strong, so that's why he's fast. Well, a lot of times their nervous system just is a great. It's very efficient. It creates high outputs, and so a kid that's fast is also strong because he has a powerful nervous system. It's not necessarily that, well, he's super strong in the weight room. That's why he's fast. No, that's not necessarily the case, right? They can display it in the weight room because they've got a powerful nervous system. And so it just appears that the strength is what creates the speed, but that's not necessarily how it happens. So just a thought. Go on, Joe.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I said, yeah, just because they're efficient in one place doesn't necessarily mean that it's efficient somewhere else. And just to touch on the point, that's why I don't like all those, if you reverse lunge 2.5 times your body weight, or if you can squat 600 pounds, deadlift 600 pounds, your velo is going to go up. Training younger kids, I get a lot of it. And I'm like, listen, that doesn't matter. It's all about the movement. And like you said, the efficiency of that CNS. And if you can squat 600 pounds, it has, it really doesn't. Happen that you're going to throw 95 miles an hour. You might throw 50.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So why don't we go right into the movement over maxes? That was going to be my next thought and my next thing I wanted to explain, and I think this rolls right into it.
Yeah. So movement over max it was essentially just created for um, high school coaches, especially, but coaches that don't have access a lot of times to a strength coach, and they're kind of creating their own programs. They might not have, they might not be certified in strength and conditioning. I used to get tons of emails from high school baseball coaches saying, "Hey, send me a program. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I train these kids?" And so really, it was the program that I run with our incoming summer guys. It's that's exactly what it is. It's what we do with our incoming guys to teach them how to move correctly. And it's not just in the weight room. It's out on the turf. It's speed development. It's learning the athletic position, something that's greatly overlooked. Just learning how to keep your chest out, hinge back, and actually be in an athletic position that's a hip dominant position. It's learning how to jump, how to land. That's one of the big things with baseball athletes, especially. Jump training is such a powerful tool, but so many baseball kids have no idea how to jump or how to land. And so I teach them these kind of elementary progressions so that we can actually use that as a training means down the road, right? And then it goes over into the weight room with our squat, our hinge, our upper body push, our upper body pull, and our iso stability series. So it's teaching athletes how to move correctly before they ever worry about weight, and that should be for every athlete across the board. It doesn't matter what sport, male, female, it doesn't matter. Teach the athletes how to move correctly first, and then you can start to increase load.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think that's something, like you said, that's always overlooked. Everybody in a weight room or a lot of places you go, everybody wants to weight. Everybody wants to deadlift the 500 pounds or they want to, bench press 500 pounds. And a lot of times they can't, they can't move. And you notice that a lot too, like you said, doing those introductory programs where you're slowing the kids down, especially kids that have problems slowing down or controlling, they hate that. They get very frustrated. The balance stuff, making them stop, positional training. And that's where you see that. But I think, exactly, the movement stuff is always going to be more important. And as you know, the strength is going to come with the movement. The more we can develop the foundation and the better they can get at the movement, the better the CNS and the more efficient it gets, at controlling the movement and being at those baselines, the stronger the athletes are going to become. So I think that's 100%. The movement definitely needs to come first. And I mean, I remember seeing some of that stuff when I was there, in the early years. You had the guys come in the summer and the stuff that they were doing was, not vastly different, but it was a baseline from what the other guys and the older guys were doing there.
Yeah. So, and that brings us to another point in that your novice athletes, your younger athletes, my freshmen and incoming JUCO transfers here, they go through that developmental stage, which is our foundation program. That's movement over maxes. But we train them with less intensity. We don't need to attack young kids, especially high school kids, with super high intensity lifts because you can get a ton of juice out of the squeeze with way lower intensities and not in a way trash them for the future, if you will, right? When you start using weight that's too heavy for a young athlete, not only do they start to move differently because now they're compensating, they're worried about the weight, not the movement, but you introduce intensity way too quickly, and you actually decrease its effectiveness later on down the road when we need a more powerful training mean to stimulate adaptation. So with my guys here, I'll give you an example. I mean, I didn't get the summer this year because of Corona, right? So we didn't get a foundation program in the summer. Our guys weren't here. So these guys are right now still going through the summer program essentially. Our intensities have been super, super, super low. And I had a pitcher come to me the other day. He's one of the top names in the class. Super strong kid. He was a guy that was, squatting over 300 pounds in high school, front squatting over 300 pounds in high school. He hasn't touched a weight over 220 pounds here yet. nothing over 220 pounds. And he says, I can't believe how much better my body feels, how much better I'm moving. And we track their weights through their weight and subjective RPE every day. And his max actually tracks higher than what his max was in high school. And he'll admit, he's like, man, I feel so much stronger than I did even back then when we were doing 300-pound front squats all the time, and I was doing it with terrible form. He's like, I haven't even got close to that weight here, and I feel so much stronger than I did back then. So we've used really low intensity to train these guys and develop them. We've got guys that have gained, this is our week 8. We've got guys, 2 guys that have gained over 18 pounds each. And like I said, low intensity. And we're in the middle of our fall season as well. So that low intensity stuff can really help develop athletes at a young age.
Yeah, no, I think movement is the end all be all, and constantly developing that movement is the key. You talk about creating the stimulus, and I kind of, use the same thing where, if you're blowing out the CNS or you're giving them too much stimulus too soon, you don't have anything to kind of pull out of your pocket, right? So when we get into January, February, we're in that college preseason where now it's time to kind of light the fire. If we've been doing 600-pound deadlifts for 6 sets of 1, back in October, we don't have anything to use, and not necessarily that they won't get better, but exactly, we've overused that stimulus, or we've already given the body that stimulus to adapt to, and now we can't go any better. They can't deadlift 1,000 pounds. They
Yeah.
can only go so high. The weights can only go so high. So the movement is always going to be key. And I'll bring up a personal story. I have a friend who was on the podcast, episode 8. He was in the big leagues with the playoffs with the Padres. And everybody always asks about his training. And when we trained back in 2012, at LIU, he didn't squat over 185. He was one of the most efficient movers I've ever coached, did everything correctly. He's one of those kids where, if he did something wrong, I said, hey, don't do that on one of the reps. He would never do it wrong again, but his whole thing was just efficiency. He squatted, 185, 225, big 6'4" kid, 220, but we didn't go heavy. We didn't go crazy. And, his velo just continued to build. And now he's in the big leagues pitching the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So awesome stuff with the maxes. So why don't we go over just a little bit of like after the movement over maxes, after the beginning phase, or what are some of the things you do with the guys, gearing them up to the season after they're done with that foundation?
Yeah, so really our program has kind of 3 levels. So there's the foundation program, which is for our developmental athletes. That's movement over maxes. Once they progress out of that, and that's usually anywhere from kind of half a year, maybe longer. It'll be different this year because obviously we're dealing with something we've never had before. They progress into our intermediate program. That intermediate program is more built around higher intensities and maximal strength, if you will. So we're gonna try to create that foundation of strength, and then as soon as we kind of hit our baseline numbers, or a guy is strong enough, so to speak, for us, we move him into our advanced program, where it's built a lot around some of Cal Dietz's Supermax, triphasic methods, some peaking methods that he utilized. But the whole goal with those advanced guys is rate of force development, maximal outputs, basically creating force fast, right? We want power, essentially. So those are the 3 levels within our program. We use a vertical integration model. So vertically integrated. Our vertical integration model is we train everything all the time, right? We train speed, we train power, we train strength. They're all in the program all the time. It's just in varying volumes, varying intensities. So if we're in a heavy period like right now of skill development, we pull back on most of that work. We have to decrease volume because you can only fill your cup so full, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're filling it with skill work right now. We're filling it a lot with skill work. So I only have a little bit of water to put back in the cup in the form of strength, speed, and power. So when we're in heavy periods of that, the weight room has to pull back a little bit because we can't adapt to everything all the time. As we get closer to the season and maybe skill work drops, before we get into the preseason, I might raise the intensities and volumes of our speed, our power, whatnot. And then once preseason starts and we have to get back into skill development, those things have to pull back. So really, it's just a give and play all the time for our skill, our speed, our power, and our strength work. It's a give and play. Give and take, I should say, not give and play. Give and take.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful way to go about it. You only have so much room, so you want to get everything in, as you said, you want to jump, you want to make sure the speed work and the movement there is there all the time. But based on pretty much where you are in the season, you add more liquid to the cup, if you will, of something than the other side. So I think that's a great way to do it and a great way to balance. As you said, there's only so much liquid you can put in the cup, right? You can't jam everything in there, and you can't have these guys lift for 3.5 hours or so. So I think the best thing you brought up was the fact that, it's not all about the maximum amount of strength. It's about the rate of force production within the less amount of time, and I know that, the studies
Yeah,
out there and things like that, guys that throw harder can create the most force in the shortest amount of time. It's not about how much force necessarily they can create.
yeah. I mean, exactly. You said it earlier. Like, there's pitchers that throw. I've got pitchers that are 200 pounds and can barely squat their own body weight, and they're starting in the big leagues throwing 98 mile an hour. So it that just shows you right there. Um, Rotation baseball is not all about maximal strength all the time.
Yeah, of course. No, it's not. And like I said, I think continuing to try to pile on to that maximum strength, that's where we start to see injuries, and unfortunately there is a lot of people still in the field that they do believe in that, right? It's we're going to continuously, build that. And, if you read the Bulgarian stuff, right, if you continuously stack on weights and stuff, everybody gets hurt, and the only reason those studies were rather efficient is because if somebody got hurt, they'd go get another person, so
Yeah,
that's one of the things with that stuff, with the maximal strength. So yeah, movement, of course, over everything.
absolutely.
So let's just go into, I just want to go into a little bit of your in-season stuff. What are some of the things that you do with your guys in season, being time constraint? You guys do a lot of traveling just to kind of maintain, their play on the field and their peak performance.
Yeah. So in season, to be honest, everything is auto regulated. We track readiness, so to speak, when they walk in the door. If you want the truth, we ask them how they feel. I don't have an app for it. We used to track it on an app and do, Google Docs or Google Sheets or whatever the case was. And it just kind of became too time consuming. Now, I just watch him with your eyes. You can tell a guy if a guy's zapped by talking to him, by looking at him, by watching how he moves in the warm up. So we ask him how they feel. Um, Based on that, we can kind of adjust the workout. So we auto regulate everything in. For us, the position players use velocity based training during the in season, and so everything is built around speeds. If a guy's moving super fast, that means he's probably pretty fresh. Central nervous system is running, optimally, and so we can increase weight. If they're moving slow, they're sluggish, then we'll drop weight. Right? They're not moving optimally. When they come in and we determine where their readiness is, then we give them options, tons and tons of options. So I have percentage ranges for the workout during the in season. We have optional sets. If a guy feels good, you can do a couple optional sets. If you feel terrible, if you feel dead, then you're going to do the minimum number of sets. You might do the light percentages, and you'll be out the door quickly. All right, we're going to try to get some restoration. So everything is really built around how the player feels in season.
No, yeah, that's I use a similar thing. A lot of times when I did it, smaller score, everybody thought you're crazy. How do you monitor it? I said you talk to them. And I think that is the most important thing. Getting back to the personal level, you want to know your athletes. You want to know what makes them go. You want to be able to tell, when they're having a rough day. And that's all paying attention. It just as you were talking about this, I was watching a Netflix documentary about the guy that trained Serena Williams, the tennis coach. And one of the biggest things that he talked about was he was a very shy kid in all through his life. But one of the things he learned how to do from not talking so much was analyze people's personality and read people. And because of a result of that, now he's one of the most sought after tennis coaches in the world because he knows what they're feeling before they do. He knows how to talk to them, how to react to them, and they tell all these crazy stories about, the things he says to certain athletes to kind of get a reaction out of them. But he credits everything that he did not on the fact that, he wasn't a big talking guy. He was extremely shy. He said he didn't even talk at all till he was 16. But because of that, he was able to analyze people, and as he coaches, and he's still in it now, that's his thing. He can literally tell what's going on with people, how to get them going, or how to kind of get in their head, without even seeing them do anything but walk in.
Yeah. I'm going to have to know the name of this documentary, Joe.
Of course, it's I'll give it to you after, but it's on Netflix, and I can't remember 100%, but there's four. There, Doc Rivers is in it. The women's basketball coach for South Carolina is in it. He is in it, and then there's the head soccer coach for not the guy for Manchester United, the other one.
Okay.
What's his name? I forget his name, but he's a real famous. He coached Chelsea and stuff. I think his name starts with an M. His last name.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, but anyway, they're all in there. But yeah, great documentary. I'll definitely give that to you after we're done here. But yeah, I was like, wow, that's a fantastic way to kind of go about things. But like I said, right there, personal level, getting guys, learning what's going on with them is the best way to figure it out. And they don't have to do the same thing, and always kind of figure out where they're at and how they're feeling.
Yeah, very good.
So what are some of the things you would like to see kind of change or progress the most in the field? And I guess we'll just go with you with baseball in the college realm, and maybe if you want, in the professional a little bit. But what are some of the things you'd like to see change, in the future of strength and conditioning for baseball?
Yeah, I mean, as far as baseball is concerned specifically, it's the energy system development. I think that's where really baseball falls behind a lot, in the fact that we still do a lot of things that aren't specific, that aren't, I mean, even relevant to the sport, right? We still have people telling, pitchers that they've got to run to get rid of lactic acid and things like that. The sport of baseball is built around lactic outputs. So speed, power, and strength, right? But we do need to have an efficient aerobic system, because that helps to build workloads. It helps for workload tolerance, really, is what it is. It helps to bring our body back to back to a neutral, get us back into a parasympathetic state, so that we can recover faster. So the aerobic system is actually very, very important. It's the stuff in between that we don't need to be doing, because it really serves no purpose whatsoever. It's the 300-yard shuttles. It's poles with 30 seconds rest. It's just the mindless conditioning that's not only not getting your athletes faster, stronger, or more powerful, but it's basically sucking up the adaptation reserves that your body is trying to use to get faster, stronger, and more powerful, right? And those are that's what separates you on a field. The guy that beats out a routine ground ball, in the 6-hole, that beats out that, right? Or the guy that's hitting freaking bombs every third at bat. It's strength, power, and speed. And that's what the game is built around. We want the aerobic system just to help us recover and tolerate those workloads of being on your feet all the time in practices and games. But the stuff in the middle it really serves no purpose for our sport whatsoever. But we continually see people that just want to do mental toughness, conditioning, this and that. And that really helps your athletes absolutely zero.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's all about getting from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic, not in between. You want to be able to go from sitting down, right, a little bit, and then just kind of get it revved up and be able to produce that power. And I think, that thing, that stigma, I guess you can call it, with all is, the poles, the 300-yard shuttles. I remember, I was coaching a team and we did a lot of that. All the guys would come in dead. They come in the weight room like, what just happened? Oh, well, Drew Brees ran 300-yard shuttles, so now we have to do this at practice. And and you try as a strength coach to ask why, but a lot of times, it doesn't go anywhere. But yeah, like those things I think need to change. And hopefully, with the teams going into the playoffs, and they're very well and thought out strength programs, I think that's going to be where the change is, as the teams that have these high level strength programs and they track everything, and there's a big, huge scientific, aspect of what they're doing. I think that's hopefully what we'll take to kind of change those things throughout college and the professional level.
I mean, I would say that that's probably a weakness still at the entire, honestly, in all of strength and conditioning. I think one of the biggest weaknesses we see with all coaches is their knowledge base of bioenergetics, so how the energy systems work. And I think I think that's the biggest weakness in strength and conditioning, is that we don't understand how all of that ties together how the human body actually works to create energy, and that it's actually that biological energy that we have to worry about when athletes are playing their sport. It's not the squat, right? We want the guys to move well. Yeah, they need to be strong, but at the end of the day, it's that the bioenergetics that happen out on the field that actually matter, and it's training the appropriate energy systems, training them as specific as possible. I think that's a huge weakness in our field still.
Yeah.
I think we get overrun with the attitude of mental toughness all the time, and we're just going to run guys into the ground when in reality that's just so few sports actually need that middle zone of running guys till they puke.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think that is what the number one thing that has to change. The understanding of the energy system, right? What do they do on the field? What are they actually doing in the sport? And I think it's almost kind of the simplest thing if you think about it. What are they doing on the field? Okay, that's what I need to mimic in the weight room. But I feel like you touched on it, the lack of knowledge of bioenergetics. I think a lot of guys will say, okay, I don't understand that, so I'm just going to use mental toughness and bury them in the ground. That way, if they fail on the field because we're not doing things to exercise the energy systems that they're using, they can blame it on mental toughness or readiness or whatever. Oh, well, why didn't he get stronger? Oh, well, he's not mentally tough, or he didn't work hard enough. It's kind of like a scapegoat, I think, that's used when guys don't perform at that level.
Yeah, I mean that's you actually bring up a very very good point right there. That's a great point.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that needs to change. But like I said, education is always going to be the biggest thing. I think it's education amongst the whole thing, all of sports medicine and communication, because if, you see it a lot of times, sometimes strength coaches don't get along with ATs don't get along with your physical therapist. And I think if we would all just kind of come along and communicate, especially strength coaches, there are also a lot of strength coaches that do some stuff that's great, but they don't want to talk to people. They don't want to offer information. And I never understood that because we're all trying to do the same thing. The most important thing is the athletes and getting them to efficiently move, as we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up a great point that I was going to touch on, and I kind of forgot about it a second ago. But you bring up a great point, and watch the sport. All you got to do is watch the sport, even if you don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything. And you just asked a commoner off the street, what would you do to train this person if I let you watch this game? Well, I would train them what they did in the game, right? Charlie Francis, one of my favorite quotes is watch the athlete, not the sport, right? When we start, and it pertains really, he did it in relevance to soccer, and that you think people are running continuously, right? Continuously. When you actually watch the athlete, soccer athletes have a burst, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's 2, 3, 4 minutes sometimes of very low intensity walking,
Yep.
jogging, and then it's another burst. But we get tied up in the game and thinking, well, everybody's just running everywhere, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we need to do. If you actually watch what the athlete does, you don't have to have a background in anything bioenergetics. Watch what the athlete does and duplicate that. Replicate that in your training.
Yep. No, and like I said, yeah, we bring up soccer, right? If you didn't know, if you said, okay, they start and stop, if you typed in what energy system deals with starting and stopping for long periods of time, it will literally give you the definition of anaerobic power and go into that thing. So you're right. It's a simple thing. And I think one of the things that I've seen too in my career is people don't like simplicity and people don't like athletes not working all the time. People still, I think, don't understand how we talked about it. A kid throws 99, but he doesn't get up at 5 a.m. and run 7 miles, and he's not squatting 700 pounds. They can't, for some reason, they can't kind of figure out how somebody can just be efficient, but they're not doing all the stuff that I think people think they should do.
Right. They can't separate maximal outputs and the appearance of hard work, right? Because we have this stigma that in order for it to be hard, you have to be on your knees, huffing and puffing and breathing
Mhm.
hard. And so it becomes tough for coaches. I mean, our speed work for 10 and 20-yard sprints, I give them 1 to 2 minute rest. Well, that's an eternity
Mhm.
in a training setting, right? Because they're hanging out. We're doing nothing for 1 to 2 minutes after a 1.5 or a 2.5 second sprint, right? But that's what we actually need to do to train that system appropriately to get maximal outputs. So the coaches have a huge a hard time separating what what we should do and what they traditionally think is hard, right?
Mhm. Yeah, of course. And I think that's one of the things that, the communication breakdown that we talked about. I think that is something that needs to change. And I think that will change as you get more and more coaches that understand, the science and stuff like that, and more guys coming in with an understanding of strength and conditioning.
Mhm.
So for anybody out there, who wants to be a strength coach, what kind of advice would you give them just starting out?
Um, Boy, it's a tough field. It's a tough field. It's very, one of the problems, honestly, it's very oversaturated.
Yep.
But you have to get in and start coaching athletes. It starts with an internship. Your first 3 years in strength and conditioning are going to be really, really tough. But if you can last through that period of working, honestly, for little to no money, long hours, I think it'll pay you back in the end, right? As I went through it early on, I can remember I was like every other intern that I've ever had. They always think about, well, I got to get out of this field. I got to make money. What can I look at?
Mhm.
Real estate. Should I be an anesthesiologist? Should I, all these other jobs that are going to start paying immediately, or after you get, your degree or whatever the case is with some of them. Um, but it's the first 3 years that are extremely tough. You got to find an internship and you got to start coaching. You got to start being around somebody that will help you learn to be a coach, right? And then it starts from the internship, it goes into that GA position, get your master's degree. Now you've got your own sports, you're creating a bigger network, and it's that network that always helps you, right? So find internships and start creating a network. Reach out to people all the time.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And, just like you said, that first 3 years, a lot of coffee, no sleep, and, a lot of things like that. But, biggest point is, coach, the experience of being in the weight room is irreplaceable, I think. No classroom, no certification, no weekend course, no webinar. I don't think takes part of that fact where, you're in a weight room, you see a problem, and after seeing that same problem or efficiency or, issue with an athlete over and over, how to fix it. I'm sure you get it now. People ask you, how do you fix it? How did you know that this is what the problem is, or how did you know to give them this cue to kind of fix this movement pattern? And it all comes down to experience. It's, well, I've seen this 10,000 times, and 98% of the time this is the issue. And then if you have a new problem that's not the same or maybe something different, you can kind of gather all those experiences that you've had, and you can usually figure out the problem, with talking to the athlete and using the prior experience.
Yes, I mean it's a tough field. It's a tough field, like we said, but just you got to be out there coaching. You have to be out there coaching. People will let you work for free. I know it sucks. I wish the field wasn't that way, but this is just how it is. You have to do an internship. It's going to be free. You got to show coaches that you want to learn and coach.
Yep, exactly. And I don't think nothing drives you more than working for free and knowing that, it's all based on you, based on where you go and who you end up with.
Yeah.
So what's next in the future? With the moving over Max's stuff and just in general with the strength and conditioning stuff you're doing. What's next for you in the future and in the upcoming season in the short term?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit earlier. Right now, I've got GPS on our guys. We're doing a lot of GPS data and actually we're getting very, very specific to what we just talked about earlier, the bioenergetics of what happens on a baseball field. That gives me such intricate details on everything that happens during that 3 or 4 or 5 hour window of the time they step out of the locker room to the time they step back in. So that's something that's really, really piqued my interest, and I'm going to go really deep into that in the future, as far as how you can train your guys very specifically. What's coming out here in the next, hopefully, in the next 3 to 6 months, will be kind of an all-encompassing training philosophy. So it will build upon movement over maxes, and it will go into essentially how to write your own programs for your baseball team once you've built the foundation of movement. It goes into what we've talked about already: sprints, speed work, progressions, our jumps, extensive versus intensive jumps, med ball throws, how to build power, and then how to actually write your own programs for strength, and then energy system development, right? I'm going to talk about the needs analysis and how you build your program based around movement, around the energy systems, around the biomotor ability, strength, speed, and power, and just get really, really deep in helping coaches to, I guess, build their own programs.
Well, that's fantastic, and I can't wait to look over it and get into that when it comes out, and can't wait to see the results.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joe. Let me know, and I'll send you one.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. For anybody who wants to get in touch with you, ask questions about what they've heard today or just in general, what's the best way to reach you and speak to you?
Yeah, so social media is everything Zach Dechant, at Zach Dechant, Instagram and Twitter. I can get back to you on there. I have a website. It's zachdechant.com. That's where Movement Over Maxes is, or you can actually just go to the movementovermaxes.com website. There's that. I've got a speed development program that goes along with Movement Over Maxes. So there's a lot of places, any one of those, reach out, ask me questions. I post a ton of stuff on Instagram as far as the question and answer session. So they can jump on there. I get a ton of questions. I try to answer them all. I don't get to them all the time, but have at it on any of those platforms.
Right. Well, anybody out there listening that wants to ask him a question, always reach out. Like I said, he'll always get back to you when he can, and great knowledge on there. And he does post all the time. And there's a lot of great information there for anybody that wants to listen and find out new stuff.
Joe, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm glad to see you're doing well, and I appreciate everything.
Oh, I thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on and you too, everything you taught me. And I've said it before, the time I spent down there with you and then the staff there really shaped, everything I did. You taught me how to, kind of do exercises without equipment. It's nice to see kind of the stuff you're doing now with the Moving Over Max is teaching people how to do the things you did without the same equipment or access. And, that's exactly what you did to me. I always remember the conversation we had. You sat me down and asked me what I had in Brooklyn, what was in my weight room. And you kind of explained to me, okay, I do this. Well, you don't have 10 free motion machines. This is what you can do, and like I said, that really helped kind of build my program, build my confidence, but also, push the program that was there to a new level. And it really helped me grow as a strength coach.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to hear that.
Yes. So thank you again for being on. And I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Take care.
All right.